Let's just dive right in. Look, we've all been there, right? Staring at a screen jam-packed with charts and numbers, just feeling your eyes completely glaze over. But what if you could take that same dry data and spin it into a story that's actually gripping and memorable? Well, today, we're going to explore how a really ancient framework, the hero's journey, can turn pretty much any dataset into a dramatic adventure.
So, first things first, let's set the scene. I want you to picture the ordinary world for anyone who works with data. It's a world just full of endless spreadsheets, super uninspired bar graphs, and presentations that, let's be honest, just fall flat. This is the big challenge our hero, and yeah, that's you, is up against every single day.
And this really gets to the heart of the problem, the central conflict of our story today. Why is it that so many presentations, even ones filled with really critical information, just don't stick? What's the missing ingredient that turns a bunch of forgettable numbers into an unforgettable story?
And here it is, the core problem laid bare. We are absolutely drowning in data, but we are starving for meaning. You know, the gap between all the information we have and our ability to tell a powerful story with it has probably never been wider. And that, right there, is the dragon our hero needs to slay.
But you know how it goes. Every hero gets a guide, right? A little bit of magic to help them on their quest. And for us, it comes from some really interesting new research that applies this timeless storytelling structure to the world of data. And no, this isn't some new app or a fancy software trick. It's a map for telling stories that's literally been with us for thousands of years.
So what exactly is this map? Well, it's the hero's journey. It's this universal pattern that scholars like Joseph Campbell identified. And trust me, you have seen it 1,000 times in movies, in books, in myths. It's this incredibly powerful framework where a hero leaves their normal, everyday world. They face a bunch of trials, they win a big victory, and then they come home with a whole new perspective. And the whole thing can be broken down into 3 pretty simple acts. First up, you've got the departure. That's when our hero gets called to adventure. Second is the initiation, where they face all the tests and the trials. And finally, there's the return, where they bring all that newfound wisdom back to their world. So, departure, initiation, return. Pretty simple, right?
Okay, so the theory is great and all, but now we're about to hit the road of trials. Let's actually see how this framework gets applied to real, messy, complex data to create a story that doesn't just inform you, but actually pulls you in on an emotional level.
The research that we're digging into gives us 2 fantastic case studies that really put this theory into practice. First, we're going to journey through the wild, shifting political landscape of Michigan. And then, we're going to follow a climate scientist on their quest for certainty. So, let's start with this first example, a really complex political story unfolding in Michigan. The journey kicks off with the departure, the state's political blue wall completely shattering in 2016. The initiation, the trial, is a super deep dive into all the data to figure out why. The story hits its climax with the 2022 midterms, and the return is that final lesson. Michigan's wild ride suddenly becomes a powerful forecast for what's happening nationally.
All right, now for a second case. In this story, the hero is a climate scientist. The journey begins with the departure, which you can see in the first panel, looking way back at Earth during the Ice Age. The initiation phase is all about that struggle with uncertainty and messy, conflicting data, which you can really feel in that third panel. And then the return, in the 8th panel, does something brilliant. It transforms all that abstract data into a tangible, powerful reality, a map showing the real-world impact of rising sea levels.
Now, here's a really crucial point. This isn't just about the pictures on the screen. As this key finding from the research points out, sound is a massive part of the journey. In those examples we just saw, the music and the sound effects weren't just background noise. No way. They were used to signal huge shifts in the story, to build tension, and to really amplify the emotional gut punch of a data point. It makes the whole story truly immersive.
So, right about now, you might be thinking, okay, this all sounds great, but does it actually work? Well, I'm glad you asked. This is the reward phase of our explainer, where the researchers put the whole hero's journey framework to the ultimate test in a formal study.
So here's what they did. In a workshop, they had one group of creators use the hero's journey framework and another group that didn't. Then they brought in industry experts to score the data videos they all produced. Now look at this chart. See all those orange dots? Those are the creators who used the framework. As you can see, their scores were consistently, and I mean significantly higher than the other group, represented by those blue dots.
And the results were, well, they were crystal clear. The folks who used the hero's journey didn't just make better videos according to the experts, They themselves said it was way easier to design the story, the sound, and the visuals for every single part of the journey: the departure, the initiation, and the return.
And that, my friends, brings us to the final act of our little explainer today, the return. You've been on this journey, you've seen the proof, and now it's time for you to take that knowledge back to your own world and become the hero of your own data.
So, here it is, your toolkit. Think of these as the key scenes you need for your data story. You start with an insight trigger. That's the data point that makes you go, wait, what? Then you find the encounter with the shadow. That's an uncomfortable truth that challenges what everyone thinks. You build to a revelation, your story's big climax, which leads to the reward, your key takeaway. And finally, you show mastery of insights by connecting it all back to real-world decisions. This is your map. Go use.
So we're going to end with this. You are now the hero, and you are armed with an incredibly powerful map. The next time you open a spreadsheet or build a chart, I want you to try not to see just numbers. I want you to see the start of an adventure. See a conflict, see a trial, and see a triumphant return. The only question left is, what epic story is hidden in your data?